Welcome to the Data Playbook podcast. It's a podcast for data leaders where we aim to build a playbook for them to get more value from data and to enable others in the organization to do more with data. We do that through a series of interviews with other data leaders, data practitioners, and data experts. I am Kris Peeters. I'm the CEO of Dataminded. And today I'm very honored to have with me Hannes. Hannes, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Kris.
Yeah.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Before we dive into the topic of the day, can you introduce yourself to the audience? Who are you? What's your background? What is your current role?
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Hannes Heylen. I'm currently responsible for the data and AI team at Belfius Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
As a background, I started studying business engineering in Leuven. Back then, it was still more data and a bit of data science, not yet a lot of AI, but every opportunity I got to take courses that went more in that direction, I already did. First steps in my career were at PwC, where I joined the technology consulting department, again with a focus mostly on everything around data, around AI.
Mm-hmm.
And then at around 2018, I got contacted by Belfius, who was then looking to invest heavily in the domain of AI, and then I made the jump there. First for 2 years at the bank side, and then at the insurance side. So at the bank side, when we were still building out the entire data environment there, so there I helped guide that a bit, and then on insurance side, where there was nothing centrally yet around data and AI, and where I had the opportunity to build that out actually from scratch to about 45 people today, with many challenges and opportunities and nice experiences that went along with that.
All right. Well, maybe let's start there. Belfius is, of course, a huge financial institution. AI is a buzzword these days, let's be honest. How do you look at AI coming from your viewpoint as a financial institution?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, which we also asked ourselves recently in the context of a strategy exercise.
Mm-hmm.
What we did there was we zoomed out as much as we could, and then we said, okay, AI, what's happening now in the world, and then starting geopolitically, where we saw that, especially since the GenAI boom, the US has been leading very heavily. China was investing a lot since the beginning, but has, especially in the European and the US media, had become a lot more present since DeepSeek suddenly challenged OpenAI, and then that really became big story. And since then, everyone's watching China a lot as well, also from this side. Mm-hmm. And then we're here, right? Europe, and there we see our European hope, Mistral AI, now popping up, and also trying to compete with the bigger players around the world. So what do we see is really, a war on talent, on investments. Everyone trying to, with hundreds of billions of dollars, out-invest each other. In Europe, not to forget, we also have ASML in terms of a chip market, a great one. So we see geopolitically, AI is one of the most important bargaining chips in all of the geopolitical negotiations. So then what we did is, okay, geopolitically, clearly AI is very important, but what does that represent? If we look, for example, at the stock markets, if we look at investments. And there we see that, stock markets, the top companies over the last years, they're all AI companies, right? Even NVIDIA, which was really a chip maker, which 10 years ago only people that played video games would have known, became now the most valuable company in the world at some point. Then you have all the classical tech companies that made it to the top, but also investments in these companies that only exist for a few years are enormous, and again in the billions. And we see that even last year, 1 in 3 venture dollars already went to AI startup. But that's enormous. Like that's what people really believe in. What is the future? It's 1 in 3 going towards AI. So that's really crazy. So we see there again. Okay, if we follow the money, again we make the same conclusion. AI is more relevant than ever. What we also see is a lot of fintechs popping up, and then we can look far, but we can also look closer in Belgium. And there, some of them can be really opportunities for players like us. For example, there's in Ghent, you have Donna, they make virtual assistant. Could be nice, right? Virtual assistants that help you manage your diary, manage conversations, manage appointments, all of that. That's not our core business. That's never something we're going to develop. So it could be nice to partner up with some of them. But then there's also others, like players that really try to get in between us and our customers, and trying to aggregate data for wealth customers between different banks and trying to hijack the customer relationships. And there, we have to be cautious, because if you lose that relationship, then you lose the entire battle. So even in the fintechs, even though many of them are still small at the moment, it is worth having a look at. Then looking a bit at what are other banks, insurers across the world doing. We see JP Morgan, we see Banco de Bilbao, we see all the big ones building AI labs with thousands of people, hundreds of people. Again, investing very heavily in that, and not just saying this is something tech we will buy from others, or no, we really need to invest ourselves in AI capabilities. So there again, we see the same signal. That all to frame a bit the context, like, okay, but why should we now, as a Belgian bank insurer, invest in that? Yeah, why should we? Because the cost of not investing will be way higher than the cost of investing in that, and that's what all the others are realizing as well. You can see it as bit as the ones that are investing now. They will now also get the efficiencies in their organization. They will get the revenues that come from that, and so they will have, balance sheet wise, they will each year after year be in a better position. And every year you wait investing, I'm really convinced that every year you wait, you'll spend like 3-4 extra years catching up, because the ones who wait will be left with balance sheets that are not not a lot of efficiencies in their people, will miss out on those revenues. Then what typically happens when the balance sheet doesn't look as good anymore, you reduce your investments. It's even more difficult to do that. And so really key is to invest from a position of strength and to be a leader in this area.
You think the time is now?
The time is now. I'm 100% convinced that the time is now.
All right.
And so that's a bit the story. Like if you ask how do we look at that, that's a bit the story there, which is also not just a story. If you see how Belfius Insurance a year and a half ago invested in Mistral AI as the belief that we need a European important player, but also invested in Alan, a health player in France, where we believe that partnerships are also important in that story. That means that, we don't just say it, we back it up with real investments.
The last time we talked about this, you had a great quote on this. You said the best way to predict the future is to create it, right?
Exactly.
It's a bit, how do you say, maybe some would say it a very arrogant thing to say, but it is true. It is true. Like you start from a position of strength and you just say, okay, the opportunity is now. We're in the right spot. If we take it now, there's going to be a lot of value for us. But if you wait, I do believe indeed every year you wait, you might risk losing 2 or 3 extra years, right? So yeah,
exactly.
So that's a bit the big picture of how you look at AI and the importance and the urgency. And let's move. But let's make it concrete. What is particular for the insurance industry? What is different for you guys than for other companies?
I believe there, as an insurance sector, the Gen AI wave, everything since the launch of ChatGPT, that has really been the turning point for us. That does not mean that before that we could not do AI. Maybe later I'll zoom a bit on a case where we built traditional machine learning models to predict fraud in claims, for example, a very successful case. So we did those kind of things before, but it's really with generative AI that everything changed. And why is that? Because as an insurance sector, 90% of what we do is text-based, is unstructured data. We love to create policies or are legally obliged to create policies of tens of pages, sometimes 80, 90 pages long with general conditions. But also our customers, they love to just describe what happened in an accident, then add some photos, add maybe a voice message. And here, is that enough for a claim? And so it's all unstructured data, unstructured information. And before the generative AI wave, that was very, very difficult to handle. Also in interactions with customers, the pre-Gen AI versions of chatbots, where it was never really a very fluent conversation, right? And that all changed, and that creates enormous opportunities for us, really across the value chain.
So the problem is still the same as 10 years ago, but now you have the tools and technologies that you can actually 10x the solution, if you will, right? Yeah. Because indeed you had chatbots 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? But what was wrong with them? Why didn't they work?
Exactly. Well, I think speaking now for Belfius Insurance, we have had, I think for 7-8 years, a chatbot to enter claims. MIBO, it's called, and actually that one is proving to work quite well. Even though it's based on that old technology, it's proven to work quite well. With more or less 50% of customers going towards that to enter their claims. So it's, I think, one of the few cases of a successful old chatbot. But I'm convinced personally, once we add Gen AI layers to that, we can even make that a lot better. But we do see that actually proves that customers want to use that. And even we saw in the past when natural disasters happened, of course, then everyone is calling at the same time, even though we doubled the teams also on our side. Everyone was working nights and weekends, and people were jumping in with the operational teams to help out, like a few years ago with the big floods. Still, then what we saw was that people massively used that chatbot, and that they were actually super happy because that way they could just enter their claim immediately, while with all the other insurers, you were just in waiting lines and nothing was happening. And that was actually something that our customers really complimented us.
That's really nice.
For
another thing that Gen AI brings, I guess, is that you have to make more conscious build versus buy decisions, right? It's not, I guess, I'm curious what your strategy was before things like Gen AI, like ChatGPT, but I think it's clear that today it's very hard / near impossible to train your own foundational model. So you probably build more today. How do you look at the build versus buy for you guys?
I think that's a very good point. Build versus buy for us has always been an important question. To make a comparison, the fraud case I mentioned before, training our own fraud models, that's something we can typically do very well ourselves, because what do we need? The most amount of data possible related to a claim and everyone that's involved to predict, is there fraud or not? Then we investigate those internally, so it's linked with all our systems. And that was something where, for example, the choice was quite easily, let's build something for that. Also in combination with other tools that were bought, but where it was a very good case to build something that predicted a lot of actual additional revenue. What is a case where we've always said that's not something we're going to do ourselves? Imagine that we want a customer to be able to take a picture of an accident, and we will estimate how much euros is the damage. Well, maybe we have some few thousands of pictures from customers, if we even ask them. We don't always do that. But there's parties in the market that have millions of pictures. We're not going to train our own models that are going to analyze then those pictures. And then indeed, as you mentioned, the generative AI wave changed a lot again, because of course we're not going to build our own foundation models. Otherwise, instead of the investments that we have, we can invest almost our entire profits towards AI, and then start competing with Mistral. But so that's something, of course, we will not do. And which has shifted as well a lot of the profiles that we need. If I look at how my AI team looked like before generative AI, a lot of people, data scientists that had a background in statistics, that were good at machine learning, all those kind of things, really with their hands in the data all day. Where if you look at what we do now with generative AI, we use the foundation models. So we moved a bit closer as well to the IT AI profiles. So they're building products, they're building applications, they're coding the visual interface, they're coding how to talk with those LLMs. And the interesting thing is that the people that have that background in machine learning, they turn out to be very good as well in building those generative AI applications. Yeah. But some of them also say, after doing that for a year and a half, it would be nice to go back to machine learning. It's more challenging technically because, generative AI, they're just connecting components to each other, building some interface around it. It looks very fancy. It's super cool. It's very tangible to show the result. But intellectually, it's way more challenging to tune your machine learning models and to do that. So interesting take there.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what floats your boat, right? Because like for the engineers, they love moving data from left to right.
Yeah.
and so integrating an open AI library or whatever, like that's an engineering problem. But of course, for the like traditional data scientists, by the way, I think it's funny that since ChatGPT, we talk about traditional data science. Well, a couple of years ago, that was the state-of-the-art data science, right? And now it's traditional data science. But traditional data scientists, they indeed like to tinker with the model a bit and explore and see if they can fine-tune and get some more performance out of it. I guess you could still do it with prompt engineering to get more performance out of a GenAI model, but it's not the same, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and we might talk about that later a bit as well. But often to reach the final result that you want to achieve, it will be a combination of GenAI products and machine learning products that will work together to get to that result. So definitely the two are still very much intertwined.
Absolutely. But I guess maybe that brings us to the use cases. I guess if you talk to 5 people at Belfius, you get at least 10 ideas on what to do with AI, right? So how do you choose which opportunities to take? Because there's opportunities everywhere, right?
Yeah, indeed. No, exactly. If I compare, I think there's a very big difference between when we first started the team 5 years ago and where we are today. If I look a bit back 5 years ago, it was always a data and AI team.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, when we started doing the first workshops with the business, like what AI use cases could be interesting, could be valuable, a lot of the feedback was, why would we do AI? I don't even have reporting on that yet. And I don't. So it was really us having to convince them we have to do things with AI.
Yeah.
Fast forward 5 years now. I think this year when we were doing the workshops, the list was 7-8 times longer than what we could possibly deliver. And then even each of one that we are building now will take sometimes 2-3 years to really reach full maturity as an AI product. So the gap has never been bigger between what would be a net positive for the P&L of Belfius to develop and what's the actual capacity and the potential to invest in that and to actually build right now. So making the right choices is key there. And as you mentioned, a good quote before, another good one that I like to use there is there's nothing as bad as to try to do something very efficiently, which should not be done at all. So make the right choices, dare to try to change processes end to end and redesign them from scratch, taking into account, okay, we need to go AI first rather than trying to use it as patchwork on top of everything, all bad processes that already exist, because you're never going to get the value that you expect from all that patchwork.
Yeah. All right. A big part of the GenAI movement is also using AI agents. And I guess you've also looked into how agents can help your workflows. The fear of some people, of course, is, okay, but agents will replace all of us, right? How do you look at AI agents and how do they play a role in your landscape?
Yeah. For this question, I'll interpret AI agents broadly. And maybe I'll explain narrowly. For me, would be to interpret it just as generative AI agents that would talk to each other through text or MCP or really those types of protocols. Here, broad, I mean an agent can talk to each other with an API or can talk to a human or... and why do I define it broadly? Because I think that's, and especially today, where the biggest value is in setting up processes where generative AI agents, traditional machine learning agents, and human agents can collaborate to end-to-end deliver a certain experience for a customer.
Okay.
And a good example of that could be a claims process. Imagine that you enter a claim today. We could perfectly, in a first contact, maybe you say, I just want to send that by email. Okay, fine, we get that. You send some information, you think you send everything, you say, here's my claim, this is my policy number, that's the accident that I had. And then a first generative AI agent could perfectly take in that email, understand the context, then link back in our systems to, that's the policy of this person, interpret, that's the information that he provided, and then actually analyze, do I have all the information needed for the next, for the rest of the chain to actually make a decision on this coverage and to actually proceed or not? And maybe that first purely GenAI agent without human intervention could already return to you and say, dear customer, thank you for entering that claim. But I see that a picture of your car is missing. Could you still send that? Then we can file the claim. Okay, perfect. Or otherwise, it can just send it on to the next one, or it waits for that iteration. Then it will send it on to the next one, but the next one could be a machine learning agent. That could be the one that we trained our fraud algorithms on to see, okay, someone is entering this claim, but better to detect fraud early on than after we paid it out and when we're trying to do an investigation and then have to get back the money. So and that could then be a machine learning agent that checks for a fraud, makes predictions, and then say above a certain threshold will escalate to a human agent. Below a certain, I can pass it on again. And this way, I won't continue through the entire claims process, but this way you can, with that combination of those GenAI agents, machine learning agents, human agents, really end-to-end redesign your processes and optimize that customer experience.
Yeah, got it. So for you, it will never be one or the other. So it will never be like, okay, our entire claims process will be done all the way by AI agents, but more repetitive things like you forgot to attach a photo, or I don't know what other example, some extra validation checks that you need to do, you could use agents for, right?
Yeah. I would say the guiding principle should be, finally, it's all about to make it as easy as possible for the customer, right?
Yeah.
If we introduce unnecessary extra steps, be it steps where you have to wait for AI agents or models to predict some, or wait for humans to take actions, or which others don't, then customers will switch. So I think that's the guiding principle. We should optimize that customer experience end to end. I don't believe that we will get to a situation where 100% of claims will 100% be done by AI. That is not realistic at all today. No. I do think that we could arrive to a situation where we say, okay, certain types of claims below a certain amount of money from customers that we trust, that we have a good relationship with, would cost us maybe, just by having a human that looks at it, would already cost us 4 times more than doing a payout. Or I do believe that we could do end-to-end those kind of things purely with AI.
Absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense what you say, but still it's a change of how you traditionally used to work, I guess, right? So how do you convince the users or the employees of the organization that this change is a good change?
Yeah. I think that links to one of the key points as well. Finally, we're always talking about AI and showing things that AI can now do, but in the end, what is the real success factor? For me, it's all about people, and indeed, all about people can mean I'm going through that claims process. Let's stick to the same example that makes it easy to always link back to it. Mm-hmm. But basically, we're asking a claim handler, reimagine your future job, where some activities that you do today will be done by AI. And there's also some new activities that you will do tomorrow, which you have never done before and which are completely different. So, very crucial. If you want to accomplish something like that, the only way to do it is from day one, you sit next to the claim handlers and you say, okay, what are we going to build? What would make sense to you? What are the types of activities that would make sense for you to have automated, to do in a different way, if you could really redesign it from scratch? And so it's really next to the people using your tools, next to the people that day-to-day have to do it. That's key. But it's all about people. Can also mean, and a bank insurer, we're not the only big organization, but we are a big organization, and a big organization that has worked a certain way for a very long time. And the reality is that delivering an AI product or project is not the same as delivering any other technology product or project.
How is it different?
Typically, I think the main difference is the uncertainty that's inherent with everything we do around AI. And the more you go towards we're building something cutting edge that others have not built yet, the bigger that component of uncertainty plays, the more you're going towards proven things, the more you can more or less commit in advance to what you will achieve. But taking an example again of claims, imagine that we would want to determine whether someone is covered for a claim with AI.
Yeah.
Today, it's very difficult to say in which percentage of claims will we correctly be able to determine that, as from which percentage do we accept something to really be good enough to help a human do it. Because once you show to a human, look, the AI says it will be covered, first they will distrust a bit, but once they do it a few times, they will just say, okay, the AI will probably be right. And so, but what level will we achieve? What's the threshold that we should set in order to really make it a success, etc. And those are all kind of things we're doing for the first time in the organization. And it's difficult to match that with a traditional planning like, we commit within 3 months, we have a component live. Yeah, that depends. Maybe within 3 months, we say we've not achieved the number needed to do this. Maybe we'll say it's ready to help a human make a decision, but not to autonomously do it. Or we will say, it's so good that it can even autonomously make that decision and just require a final human sign-off. And so dealing with that inherent uncertainty, that's again a people challenge. How do you get everyone around the table for that?
Okay, so you say the most important success factor across projects for you is the people aspect. Start from the people, start from their jobs, start from their needs, start from their struggles, and also, make them aware or enable them to deal with uncertainty. That's important to you. At the same time, the technical person in me thinks about, but what about the data? How your focus is AI. Does data still have a role to play, except being just raw input? And how do you do, for instance, governance in AI world?
Again, a very relevant point. I think one of the most important and biggest challenges that any company will face over the next years. Because indeed, you could make the reasoning like, in the past we had to train machine learning models ourselves, our data had to be perfect, or we make a wrong prediction and it's useless. But now with generative AI, we also just ask ChatGPT something and it gives a response, right? So why do we still need to do data governance or content governance? At a talk I gave a while back, I had a very nice visual example of that, showing a page in our policy, and then with arrows indicating how you had to read through that policy. And then you see an arrow going top, right, and left, bottom. It just jumped around through the document. So even for a human, it was difficult. Where do you have to navigate? When do you have to read a table, then go back up? And it was almost impossible to understand for a human. And those are the challenges that we face right now. Like we think, just give the chatbots that we built, we give it all the information and it will figure it out itself. No, it still needs quite some guidance. Same thing on conflicting information. Like the first thing, if you just gather all information, imagine that we want to create a chatbot that answers questions about our non-life insurance policies. Yeah, we have old versions of policies, we have new ones, we have information in PDF files which might conflict internal notes and so the biggest challenge for me will be, how do you set up that content management, knowledge management within an organization? And I think the difference with the AI part is everyone is jumping to be the one who can develop the nice fancy AI tools and show that and visualize, look what we're building. But I don't see many people jumping up when we ask the question, okay, but how should we do content governance? Who is gonna build systems where people can do that? Who is afterwards gonna be responsible to curate all that knowledge? Often it's also shared between many departments, right? Even just reflecting for Belfius, we have non-life insurance policies, for example. Okay, so you could say non-life has to manage things, but then we also have different channels. We have a DVV brand, we have a Belfius brand, we have a Belfius Direct brand. Yeah. Okay, who's then responsible finally to update the different things? And so it will be basically data governance all over again. putting people in a room, deciding who's the owner, who will actually update it, how do we then inform people when definitions are changed, content is updated, and I think that's one of the key challenges that will come for the next 2-3 years, and where we see that it's a bigger impact on the quality of output. Looking at generative AI chatbots, it's a bigger difference that you have the right content beneath than making some tweaks to the setup technically of how the bot is working.
Yeah, it's funny. I love how you bring this, because there seems to be some trend that goes like, oh, but now we have Gen AI. We don't need to worry anymore about structuring the data or organizing the data. Just throw everything in a chatbot and ChatGPT will figure it out. But that's like proven not to be the case, right? So I love how you say, on the contrary, you need to invest even more in content quality and data quality and in governance. And I believe the same. And the projects that don't do that from the start, they will have flaky results, and it will be impossible to fix, no matter how smart the next ChatGPT is going to be, or the next Mistral model is going to be.
Exactly, and you can in that context, I often make the comparison like, okay, look at your Gen AI app, or look at it like it's a student, a very smart one, best grades at university, one that has a global mindset. It traveled around, learned many languages, a lot of generic knowledge about the world. But imagine that you hire someone like that tomorrow, and you put them in a non-life department, for example, and you just say, here are 5 PDFs about the same insurance with conflict information. Here is that, and here, that person will also not figure out which is the correct information, or because they don't have the background on this document. Yeah, I remember that person created it 5 years ago, but it's not relevant anymore. It's actually this. So he also has to interact with people around him to ask, what was the context, and if we don't add that context towards an AI agent, it will also not be able to tell the difference.
If the smartest human can't figure it out, the machine won't either.
Exactly.
Right? But maybe talking about humans, let's focus a bit on the human aspect of AI. You've been with Belfius for a couple of years now. You've built and grown a team. I presume. I don't think it's just you. I hope not.
Indeed.
For your personal life. But I wonder, how do you assemble a team? How do you select people to be on the team?
It has grown quite organically. When I switched from bank to insurance, nothing existed, so we were 2 to start with. Now 45, so that scope has grown a bit. A combination of people that were recruited externally, and people that have been, especially for the data part, then centralized at some point, because we had scattered data analysts everywhere. And then we said, instead of doing everything on our own databases in our corners, we'll centralize. So that's a bit how it looked like on our side. In terms of selecting the people in the team, I think the most important aspect I try to take into account is, we as a data and AI team, we are in between, have always been and will always be in between technology teams and business teams. Yeah. But every day, the how do you say it, the grand écart. If you know and if you don't, you should look it up. The Volvo commercial at some point, where Jean-Claude Van Damme is going like that,
split.
Making a split, and so that split is becoming broader and broader every day, and that's a bit. I feel like we're almost where Jean-Claude was in the video. That's almost where we are today, and I think that's the main criteria to hire people that really want to just look at what's the end goal, what do we want to achieve here, how can we bring value, and then let's make it happen, whatever that means. And if that means you step into a role of an architect today and in a role of a project manager tomorrow, and then you have to try to get into the mind of an executive tomorrow and see how does he look at this, and how do we sell this actually, and make sure that they believe in it and that it's valuable. People that really want to do that, and people that don't want to be put in corners like these are my responsibilities, and outside of that I don't want to work. So really the broad profiles, that's how we've been selecting so far. And I would say quite successfully. I think I'm lucky to have one of the best teams in the country to do those kind of things.
I 100% believe you. At the same time, I wonder, the profile you describe, it's not easy to find, right? We both know that. How do you convince those people who also get offers probably from startups, from maybe more appealing industry than financial institutions, for they maybe can do like benefit for good in the world or whatever, or like sexy technology companies? How do you convince those profiles to work in a financial institution?
That's a good question. I think one of the main things is to be very transparent about we're not a startup. If you think you're going to be building things in days and then put it in production without any consequences, that's not our company. But we do really build concrete stuff that is finally also really used and goes to customers and really has an impact. We can show the millions of impacts that our fraud models have. We can show the daily usage of AI apps by business users. And so it is very concrete. And so it's a different profile that says, I want to work for a startup. I just want to do anything I want and very as creative as possible. And their disadvantages, you might not ever see it used somewhere, or you might not see the value. For us, okay, you will have to, even though, take it end to end as much as you can and be autonomous, yes, but you will still always have the process of a big company, and it will never be as easy. But that's the challenge, and once you then realize that real value, the reward is even bigger, I think, in terms of the impact that you bring.
I can confirm. I think what makes a lot of engineers and scientists happy that I've seen is where they can actually make a difference, where they can see like, okay, we built something, it's not perfect, there were some challenges along the way, but it's live, it's being used, people are happy with it, we save money with it, we generate extra money with it, we improve quality with it. Like as long as you can do that, but not everyone can do that, by the way. Sometimes projects stay in development for years, and you want to avoid that, right? You want to make sure that what you do has a tangible impact on business.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, maybe let's make that part a bit concrete. So when you talk about building stuff that matters, can you give a few examples of use cases? And I know you cannot share everything, but what are some use cases that you have built in the past where you say, wow, that's really cool?
Yeah. I think the first one that I would mention would also be the first case that we built in a team, and that is that we build fraud models on our claims. So models that predict fraud on our claims. Previously, we had already a fraud cell that was investigating fraud. Fraud could be flagged by an agent or a claim handler, or they could say, this is suspicious, and then send it to the fraud cell, investigate it, and if something is wrong, recover the money, or we don't pay out. We had a rule-based system already, and a bit in the trend of, I'm exaggerating, but in the weekends, you get 20 points. In a bad neighborhood, you get 20 points. Around nighttime, you get 20 points. Above a certain score, you say, we want claims like that to be investigated. So that already existed, but there was nothing with machine learning. And the reason why I'm so proud of that case is because, first of all, it was one that in the beginning, we really pushed as we have to do this. And which was then really adopted, and so many compliments came from that fraud. So the models are amazing, and it seems like magic. And it's a case. It's proven for us to be in the millions of value, and that's something. Once you have that, you can create a sort of a flywheel effect, and that's something that I would like. If anyone is asking, I'm starting an AI team now. What would be the recommendation? Make sure to start with a case where you know that the value will be there. So look at the market, look at what other people are doing, and take something you really believe will bring the euros, and where you can really prove that the euros were yours. So here we can really prove, like, this case was only flagged by our model, the money was recuperated and was directly back to the P&L. And so it's like a direct link that just pays for the entire team. And then if you can do a case year like that, then you're in. Then you have the buy-in of all your stakeholders, And that's one where I would say I'm very proud of what we achieved.
To zoom into that, I guess the challenge is not explaining to business stakeholders that detecting fraud is important, because nobody will disagree with, of course we need to detect fraud because we need to protect our business. I guess the challenge is convincing that your algorithms can do a better job than a human fraud team or a rule-based system, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then indeed, as you say, then also quantify that. As you said, show the numbers.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
But I can also attest to, especially if it's your first case, we've seen plenty of clients where the first case was like that. You saved millions or you made millions, and then there's a lot more opportunity for growth. But we've also seen clients where the first case was nice, technologically it was sound, but didn't really move the needle business-wise. Yeah, then not much happens after that. So
exactly.
With you chose the right first case, and sorry I interrupted you, but so what came next?
Next, I think we kept on investing in new cases, and we had other successes. We also had cases where it didn't work, of course, but we don't just have... we have multiple cases where you can say that's the euros, that's the efficiencies. But the next biggest change, I would say, where I'm very proud of how we handled that as a team, was when ChatGPT went in the news, like it's launched and it's amazing. And then first thing we did was, okay, let's get all our business stakeholders together. Let's see, okay, this new technology, what could it bring for us? Let's go as quickly as possible to our management board and say, even though we have the habit of once a year doing roadmap exercises and those kind of things, we said, this is one where we break the habit and where we say, okay, 5 test cases. These are the ones we aligned with each business unit. Let's go for it. Let's build them and then say in 3-month phases, like go, no go for a next phase. And then we really proof of concept. That's what we have to prove in the first phase. If it's a go, we continue. Otherwise, we drop them, etc. And one of the cases that became a big success out of that is a case in claims, which we called claims Copilot a bit, because it's really intended to be the help of a claim handler.
Okay.
And so how do we see that product? Really as a claim handler can rely on that AI application with his daily activities. And the first thing there was daily activity, summarizing all the information about a claim that he or she has. Sometimes it's smaller cases, but often it's cases where there is 50 back and forth email communications to a customer, then 30 to a partner or to garages or to buy parts or other insurers. And so it can become very quickly very complex. A lot of unstructured information, combination with structured data, all of that. And typically a claim passes through multiple claim handlers. And so the first thing would always be, I have to read up on what did the other guy already do and what was now decided. And so that's why we said, okay, this is a case, the value is clearly there. Instead of spending sometimes half an hour to catch up on what's happening, here is a summary, you can ask questions. And that really formed the basis for now adding new functionalities to that. And we see that a bit as an AI product that will help our claim handlers, to which we can then add different AI features. One feature could be that summary, but now we're also building new features like determining, is this claim complete, or do we need to ask additional documents to the customer before we can enter this? Is this claim covered or not based on the policy? And those kind of things. And so that's really an iterative way of building that out. And that has been another one where I'm proud of where we are with the team.
But I guess that also brings a challenge, because you might be the victim of your own success, meaning that, okay, once something like that is live, it brings value. Like people in production don't want you to change it anymore, right? It's creating value now, but you want to improve and innovate. So how do you do that? How do you bring iterative improvements?
Yeah, exactly. What we did is we basically have the claims Copilot, or actually it received a new name recently, Nestor, we call it now, but of course Nestor. The listeners won't understand that. So that really means that it's getting adopted, right? If it gets a name, then it's getting adopted by the business users. Yeah. But next to that, we have a copied version, but with different features, which we call the lab.
Okay.
And there we can build those new components. That lab we don't open for all the business users, but to a select number of test users. And there, for example, we now develop a coverage check, a completeness check. Those business users can test that on live production data, so they can, but they know that it's not something at this point to rely on. They have to use it to test it, to give us feedback, and to allow us to improve those components. And the way that we see it is that those components, they will grow in maturity. At some point, they will be ready to make it to the real product that is used by the entire department. And then at some point, it could also be used, we could say, what we said before, for simple cases with a certain euro threshold, or they could be used really in end-to-end automations.
Yeah. All right. And of course, it's easy to talk about successes, but can you also give some cases where you were less successful?
Absolutely. So many cases. That's important. Try and fail and dare to say when it fails.
Okay.
I think one that comes up almost every year, or maybe it has come up every year when we're doing our next workshops, like what should we put on the roadmap. One is churn predictions.
And what is churn prediction for people?
A good point. Of course, as an insurance, we want to gain new customers. That's nice. We grow, but we also want to limit customers that leave us. So churn is the customers that leave us and go to another insurer that we want to avoid. Typically, they do that for certain reasons, and we want to prevent that from happening. And there, it's not that with AI we cannot predict who is likely to churn, because we can predict, we can look at who churned in the past, what are typically their characteristics, and then we can make predictions. But as any prediction, it's like, okay, out of that list, you contact 10 people, and 2 of them would actually have left the next 6 months, and the other ones wouldn't have. Predictions are never perfect. And then, okay, that means the AI works, because if you would contact 10 at random, none of them would have left normally. So the AI works. It's 10 times or 20 times better than taking someone at random or great.
Yeah.
But then what? And I think that's the critical question to ask with all these cases, and also the reason why year after year we don't put it on the roadmap. We say first you come with to the people requesting it. Then first you come with the then what. Imagine that we give you that list. 10 people, 2 of them statistically would have left. What will you do? Will you dedicate agents to call those people, to ask them, how are you feeling? Come for a conversation here, because that costs time of agents. Inviting them again costs time. Maybe you call them and they will say, good that I hear you now. I was planning on quitting Belfius already for a few months. Because it fits the profile. Can you just do it for me? Voila. And then you lost them even before you would have. And so like, if they're not prepared to make big changes and to really invest capacity business-wise to use the outputs of your models, don't even bother making them. Of course we can make them. We can make nice predictions, I'm convinced. But we don't put it on the roadmap because we don't have the commitment to use them. And in this case, for example, there's a very easy alternative step to take. A classical data analysis. Why do those people that churn leave?
Yeah.
What are the real reasons? And how can we improve our service, improve our products to just avoid that? And then it's better for everyone, instead of trying to call a few out of the thousands of customers and trying to fix their specific problem.
You're trying to attack the root cause with simple data analysis.
Indeed.
Over like symptoms.
Don't always need AI. And then of course they come with, but we know everything about, in this time with AI, we know everything. We can hyper-personalize. Not in this case. So that's often the disconnect between what people think AI will do well and what it actually does well.
You've been in this industry for a while now. What are some lessons learned that you'd like to share with other people who are in the same journey as you are?
Yeah. The number one would be, and I mentioned it before, linked to the fraud case, but the number one would be, if you start this journey, pick a case that you truly believe in, that will create that value and create that flywheel effect. The first time okay, you have to count on someone that believes in AI to get your first resource. And you can convince them with words, but without anyone that really builds it, you don't have anything, right? So you have to convince with slides and with words and with a story and a vision. But you can only do that once. The second time you have to come with euros, and that's what it delivered. And so build on that. And of course, not every case will be like that, and that's normal. If you do propensity to buy models to gain business so try to be very realistic in advance, which are the cases where we will be able to show the euros directly on the P&L, and which are the cases which we're doing to grow the company or to realize strategic ambitions or to improve customer experience, but where we will never be able to convince the finance guys this is where the big millions come in. So that would be one of the biggest lessons for me. A second one would be a quote from Ken Beck. First, make it work, then make it right, and then make it fast. And I think that's so crucial, because it's easy, especially with very smart people who love AI and who love to only do the best they can do. And it's, before you know it, you've spent a year and a half designing your ideal architecture on slides and designing the perfect building blocks and solutions. And you know what? After a year and a half, the field has evolved so much that your perfect picture is actually the perfect picture of the past, and you already have to start changing that. And so you can just continue working on that without ever delivering value, and that's what you absolutely want to avoid. The first thing you do is, for example, a claims copilot. We want to start that tomorrow. The first thing you do is you go sit next to a claim handler and you say, okay, imagine that you had an AI tomorrow to help you. What would it do? And then you try to get an empty pipeline end-to-end working. And in this case, that would mean make sure that there's a visual interface that you can say hello world to your claim handler, that they can log into, that they can use, and then fill it up iteratively with content and with AI engines. Then make it right. Of course, we don't want to have 10 AI engines running in completely different technologies. And so make sure that your landscape is aligned and all of that. And then make it fast, or make it cheap. In GenAI, cheap is the new fast, because we can use the best models for everything. But that's your luxury position. If you have thousands of users and millions of LLM calls a year, and you have a very big, that's a luxury position. That means that it's used so much that it's actually valuable, that you are probably, your business benefits are already tenfold. And then you can test, okay, should we maybe get the mini version of that model? Okay, it costs us 5 times less. The performance is more or less the same. Yeah, let's use it for that activity, and then start optimizing. But first, make it work. That's really.
You don't, in the first phase of a project, you don't worry so much about model cost. Just say first, make it work, make it right, as in make the solution architecture, make it sound, make it solid. That's the second step, and only then is okay. It is the right thing because it's delivering value. It works. It is also solid principles. And now let's see where we can optimize or improve costs.
Indeed. And
okay.
It's even if I look now at the consumption cost of LLMs, it's negligible across all the use cases. Just because it's we're in the beginning of that. Yeah, of course, at some point it will become significant because you have many different cases, many different users. It will add up and it will become important. But at this point, it's negligible.
It's a long word.
Yeah. I won't use it again.
Yeah.
And if you see the market there, it's evolving so fast that even if now you try to be cost efficient, next month they come with a new model. Here for half the cost, you have better performance. And so that's not the way to play it right now. What we did now to again make that tangible is, for example, in that case where we summarize a claim, we show this summary has cost, and it's like 13 cents.
Yeah.
Saves half an hour of time of someone, costs 13 cents.
Yeah,
I think we're good.
Your people cost is way higher.
Indeed. But that we showed because we were always getting the questions like, oh, wow, but you're sending all that claims data there. It must be a huge LLM cost.
Yeah. But a follow-up question on that, does that mean that you're expecting the models to evolve? You also invested in Mistral, but you mentioned OpenAI a few times. Does that mean that you treat the models as a commodity and you just pick the lowest cost vendor with best performance, or how do you deal with that?
It depends. So we architecturally we have the flexibility to do whichever we want. Then it depends a bit on the use case. Like, because we invested in Mistral, we have quite good contacts with them, which allows them to do some consulting with us as well, and to work together on some cases. And then, of course, we're going to go for those models. In some other cases, we might say, okay, let's use an OpenAI model, and then at some point switch it or not switch it. But that's not what we see today. Is not that. That's what makes it the big difference.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe at some point we'll host our own models. Imagine that we have that it stagnates the performance of those models. That we have a huge volume. Might be worth it at some point to have those. But today, not a chance.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
All right. It kind of already brings me to the final question that I ask all the guests. You've been in data for a long time now. What is something that you know today that you didn't know when you start?
Yeah. Of course, when I started, I was ignorant.
And now listen.
And now still ignorant, actually. Know what you don't know, and that's number one. Something that I would say, the importance of, and it seems very logical, but the importance of, towards all parties, always very clearly communicating, aligning, making sure that everyone knows the value of what was brought and what was built, and the importance of that aspect is it's so important. You can have the best AI team possible that build great stuff, but if you neglect the other part, they're not going to make it. They're not going to receive the right funding. They're not going to receive the right buy-in. And sometimes you think, we built something like that for claim, so everyone will know how amazing it is. No, you have to communicate, and especially in big organizations, communicate everywhere, show what you've achieved, prepare already for the next 10 cases, that the mindset is there, that the investments will follow. And so that entire part, communicating, aligning, making sure that budget-wise, vision-wise, strategy-wise, everyone is on the same side and going in the same direction. That's 80% of how you build a great data and AI team.
All right. With that, I'd like to conclude. Hannes, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Wish you best of luck in your AI journey.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I was very happy to be here.
Awesome.